Ratan Tata is India's most loved, most respected, and most admired business leader. But there's so much of his life that we still do not know anything about. Now, a new book, an authorized biography, will change all that. It's a riveting read. I've been speed reading it for the last many hours, and it tells you so much about Ratan Tata, whom the country lost just recently, that is startling but also endearing. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. In a moment from now, we'll be talking to Dr. Thomas Matthew, who has written the definitive and authorized biography of the life and times of Ratan Tata, a man who touched the skies, quite literally with his love for flying, but also touched more than 1 billion hearts with his simplicity, his kindness, his compassion, and his love for animals. There's a lot of that in the book, but there's also in this amazing biography a story about who Ratan Tata loved as a young man, why that relationship fell through, how the two reconnected in their older years, what came of it, what became of it. These unknown facets are what make Ratan Tata Alive really the book that it is. Of course, the book also talks about the famous, or some would say infamous, battle with Cyrus Mistry, the run-in over the nano car, and many, many other anecdotes that go back decades. The trials, tribulations, the triumphs, the love for flying, the return or the Ghar Wapsi of Air India. There's so much to cover in this book, and I recommend that all of you who might be interested in what Ratan Tata stood for and what his life was actually all about, read it. It's my privilege now to welcome to the program a man of many parts. Dr. Thomas Matthew is with us. He has been an Indian Administrative Service officer. He serves on the boards of several companies, but he is today in his capacity here as the author of Ratan Tata Alive, the authorized biography of Mr. Tata's life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barkha. That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That's a very kind introduction.
Thank you. I want to actually start with something that has nothing to do with the empire that Ratan Tata built. It doesn't have anything to do with business. It has to do with a young Ratan Tata who even then loves flying. And the book actually reveals how the first time Ratan Tata, as a student in the United States of America, goes out for a double date. He actually arrives not like other regular people might in a cab or a bus or a tube or a subway. He arrives in a plane, and he actually touches down on the tarmac to pick up his date. I found that a really sweet and lovely anecdote. So I want to start there. The young Ratan Tata, a guy who used to, go out on dates. He fell in love. We'll come to that in a moment. But tell us about that little anecdote. First, tell us, how many years of conversations did it take you to actually capture the life of Ratan Tata?
See, Barkha, I started this project in 2018. And Ratan was kind enough to give me maybe about 100, 120 hours of interview. And every interview was very fascinating. From then on, we discussed almost everything under the sun. Perhaps I don't think he has revealed as much as revealed to me, to anybody else, but I can't say it all, but many stories will get interred with me. But it was a fascinating journey. That man is unique in many ways. Man of who I called opposite polarities, the characters which opposite polarities housing in one individual. And that's what makes him unique, because let me give you an example. He's very fiercely competitive. At the same time, he has enormous compassion and empathy. They normally don't go hand in hand, but in him, it was housed in a very seamless manner.
Yeah, there are many, many, many wonderful details that come out in this book. And I want to start with a question that many people have asked Ratan Tata. Ratan Tata, why didn't you marry? Was there someone special? Was there somebody you loved? And your book actually reveals a romance between Ratan Tata and Caroline Jones. Yes, that's a married name. This is a picture of her courtesy your book. And they begin a relationship. And then the 1962 war happens between India and China. Lady Tata asks Ratan Tata to come back to India. Ratan meets Caroline through the architect's firm that her father runs, if I'm not wrong. Tell
Yeah.
us about the relationship. What happened?
See, in 1962, Ratan passed out from Cornell with flying colors. In fact, his thesis has been talked about. People still talk about his thesis, which he had done. And there was this gentleman called Archibald Jones, Quincy
Hmm.
Jones. He was
Hmm.
one of the external invigilators of Ratan. So before Ratan left, or at least planned to leave the US in 1962 after graduation, the polite man that he is, he picked up the phone and tried to speak to Archibald Quincy Jones and tell him that, thank you very much, sir, I'm leaving for India. So he said, told Ratan, in case you're coming to Los Angeles, come and see me. And he went to see him just to say goodbye to him. And then he asked him, have you got your thesis? He said, yes, sir, I've got these photographs of my thesis, showed him the thesis. And he said, oh my God, this is brilliant. Will you work for me? He said.
Hmm.
And Ratan says, here is a man who is to build houses for film stars, one of the most qualified, well-known architects. So he says, it was a dream come true for me. So he says, yeah, I immediately flew back to Cornell and said, okay, don't ship my things, came back and then started his journey. Okay. And this lady, Carolyn Jones, who used to frequently meet Ratan even after they separated, or they went their own ways.
Yeah.
It was quite sad that they got separated. That's because when Ratan was introduced to Carolyn Jones, the daughter of Emmons, one of the partners of Jones and Emmons, a bespoke architect firm in Los Angeles. You know what she told me? I interviewed her for 8.5 hours. I'm sorry, I'm
You
not carrying
did.
the entire. I'm not carrying that
You
entire
should
thing.
have you should have shared more. You tell us very little, very
Barkha,
sparingly.
Barkha, let me tell you something. I was told that this is not a romantic novel. Okay. So somebody told me, I'm not going, honestly, I'll tell you something very interesting. The first time people don't understand that romance at the age of 24, 25 makes a man. Okay. And
Yes.
then if you're not romantic at that age, then I think you're not a complete man. That's the way I look at it. Okay. So it's fascinating stories.
Yes.
She said that she was introduced by her father to Ratan. She looked at Ratan and wanted to say hello, but she was speechless. She said she could not utter a word. And at
Well,
that time,
he was so handsome that I think anyone would have been speechless.
absolutely. And she said, I just kept looking at him, and then started an amazing love story. And in
Yes.
1960, and then towards the end of 1962, his mother, his grandmother, Lady Navjbai Tata, whom he called My G. Okay, MYG. Now I asked him, what does it mean? He says, she was all mine, my G. He was so possessive about her, and for her, Ratan was everything. Okay, and Lady Navjbai Tata was the widow of Sir Ratan Tata, the second son of Jamshedji Tata. Okay, now he felt very sad, and Barkha, I need to correct you here. She did not ask Ratan to come back to India.
I see.
She was so caring about him, about his love for the US, which he called his second home. But she said, I am not keeping well. So for Ratan, it was important that he spends his time with her, especially when she's unwell, indisposed. So he came back to India, and Carolyn Jones, then Carolyn Emmons, was supposed to follow him. And October 1962 started the China-India War. And for an American, those days, the subcontinent was fraught with danger. The biggest country, Mao, ruling China, it was something that they could not come to, wrap their head around. So she just, didn't have the courage to come to India, although she later told me that she regretted not having done, but at least come to India, see if it could work. And then in the US, 19-year-old lady, she fell in love with another person called Jones, who she said was exactly like Ratan. He was an architect. He was a flyer. So her father actually told her that you are looking for, an affair on a rebound. And after some years, Ratan went to meet her again after she was married. And then there is a very interesting story. She was carrying a second child. So Ratan took her and her husband out for dinner. And then later on, he told her, I think you are really having a happy life. I'm not going to call you again. And then he did not call her again. Then when her husband passed away, she connected with Ratan. And then almost every year, she kept coming and staying at his home. That's because the embers of their love never died, in a manner of speaking. And that's their love story.
It's an amazing story. I think your book says that she was watching a movie about India, and her friends asked her, do you know anybody in India?
Yes, that's right.
Right.
And then she says,
yes,
I know.
I do. Yeah.
And then she Googled, and it was all written all over. Okay. No, I didn't want to go because, and then there are many, many stories to it. And then she came to India, and then she couldn't meet Ratan because Ratan's love for dogs, his dog had a problem. The doctor in India said, you amputate his leg. So he says, I'm not going to do that. And then he searched the whole world and flew his dog to Minnesota. And it coincided with her visit to India. So there she came to India, and he was there in Minnesota looking after his dog. Okay. Now, there are so many stories to tell you, Barkha. It will take 10 Barkha series to at least touch the edges of the book.
But tell me something. When you said you spoke to Caroline for many hours, and you said the embers of their love never died, and she reconnected with him after her husband died, because he had said, you seem to have a happy marriage, I'm not going to keep in touch with you.
Yes, that's right.
Do you feel they were able to pick up the threads of their relationship, of their romance, or was it like friends now?
Can I say something? I do not know, but I can tell you the embers of love in her, which she had for Ratan, never died. Let me give you an instance, a very, very interesting instance. She told me that she was at a salon where she opened the book and she saw Ratan's photograph. She tore that page where his photo appeared, and she kept it in one of her personal drawers, and she just showed it to me. And in fact, the photo which you're seeing, and the other photo with Ratan, the Benyan, was given by her, and she preserved it, hid it somewhere deep down so that nobody could see. And when I met her, she handed over these two photographs and said, this would symbolize my love for him.
It's an amazing, you could write a whole romance novel based just on this relationship. I think that should be your sequel. I think that should be the sequel.
Barkha, somebody told me after reading, I'm not going to name anybody. Somebody told me, said, this is not a Milson Boone love story. I said, okay, fine. So initially, I had 22,000 words on this, and I called this Tata's American Girl. And then I brought it down to about 800 words.
No. We need to read that book. You need to.
We'll
need to publish the 22,000 words as a separate. I think everybody would.
That's a 2-volume. That's going to be a 2-volume series.
Amazing.
Yes, Barkha, please.
And kind of sad that the love story could never be brought to fruition in a.
I completely agree with you. Yeah, I agree. And then, honestly speaking,
did she regret it? Because she went on to have a full life. She had 2 children. She married. Her husband died.
But I'll tell you something. She told me she always regretted that she did not come to India and see if it can work. She told me. She says, I don't know what I felt. He said, if I'd have told my parents loved Ratan so much. Who will not love Ratan? Honestly speaking, parents love Ratan, and she said, if I would have told my parents, although she's the only child of her parents, she says parents would have encouraged her to come to India. She, after Ratan passed on, I spoke with her. She says, I still regret of not having come to India to see if I could work it out.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing and sad. It leaves you, it's a bittersweet,
Sure.
bittersweet romance. Now, your book
Yeah.
is full of other, I could spend the next 1 hour talking about Caroline and Ratan's romance, but there's so much else in the book. And again,
Sure.
I'll come to things that not a lot of people know about. Personal
Sure.
details. I think at some point you wonder how expensive is the watch that Ratan Tata used to wear, and you speak about how the watch was 5,000 rupees, but you
That's
say that
right.
his formal suits were Brioni, they came
That's
from the United States of America. But then you talk about his home, the house that Ratan Tata, one of the richest people in the country, lived in. It was a 5-bedroom home with a cook who doubled up as his butler,
Butler.
Rajan, who actually finds place in his will as well. So tell
As
us
also
about what.
Subaya. There are two people. One is Subaya,
Yes.
other is
Huh.
okay. See, Ratan, I told you, he's got some expensive taste, like the suit he wears. Okay.
Hmm.
But at the same time, the normal trousers and the shirts, he normally, he has a tailor in Kolaba. Okay. And the tailor in Kolaba stitches them for him. And the normal check shirts, he's fastidious about check shirts. If you see in that book, you'll see Ratan doing a ballroom dance in bush shirt, check shirt. Okay, that's him. And I'll tell you his simplicity. His simplicity is amazing. I've spent so many hours with him, and I'll tell you, normally especially there is a thing called the annual group management meet, which is called the AGMM. AGMM used to be his meeting with the CEOs. Okay, I've talked about it in great detail in the book. So I picked up these AGMM presentations, speeches from all over the world because Tatas did not have them. And his old, staff, I collected from all of them. So he used to see through them. And he used to look at the speeches, hear him speak, all, and go back the memory, lane for decades. And then for lunch, what we used to have? We used to get French fries, Coke, and pizza from a dirty shop outside his home. You won't believe it. That's him, a typical American. French fries, Coke, pizza. I said, sir, perfect. I said, spending time with you is like having probably the choicest food in the world. I said, who look for food when one is talking to Mr. Ratan Tata, right? So that is a simple habit. And this house, you won't believe it. If you see the photograph on the left side, is a huge statue of the bust of Buddha. Okay, I went and knocked it. I thought it must be pure lead or copper. You know what? It's made of plaster of Paris. So that's it. It's just ordinary. There is nothing imported. It's just upper middle class tiles in the house. It's fascinating. If you have the, in the net and many places people talk about how opulent this house is. It's nothing. If you have the privilege to get in, you will be struck by simplicity. And that simplicity is awesome. And there is richness in that simplicity.
I think you're right
that's
that I think you're right that the only part of anything that reflected wealth were his cars.
That's right. He loved cars. Cars has been a fascination for him. In fact, the Jaguar, Tata Motors, he used to always say, I used to have fascination. My weakness is for cars. And he loved cars. And he had the best of cars. He had the big American muscle cars. He had the Maserati. He had the Lamborghini. He had the Lincoln Continental. So, there's so many instances where he promised me that if you would win the case, you would take me in his car to Taj for dinner. But he didn't do that. But, how do you like this photograph? I tell him, Barkha, if you go back to the previous photograph where I call it imperious tilt of chin, the earlier one.
This one?
No, the earlier one. No, where he's sitting.
This one?
Yes. You know what I tell him? I tell him, sir, this makes you look like somebody who is very serious about doing things. And there is an imperious tilt to the chin. if you really notice that. And that's the title I've given to that photograph too. So that's the simplicity.
It's a classic. It's a
It's an
classic photograph.
amazing photograph. You won't believe, Barkha. I traveled from Albuquerque to San Francisco to Texas. I met all his classmates, all his college mates who knew something about him. And I traveled all the way to cities just to pick up a photograph from his old friend. If you notice in the book, there is the payslip which Ratan got, the payslip, if you see, one small, tiny payslip, where when he was employed by the bespoke architect firm. So I went to all the cities, and look at this. How adorable that is Ratan as a barman. Can you imagine? When I showed him the photograph, he told me, Thomas, from where did you get this? I said, sir, from your friend. He said, it's an amazing photograph. Will you give it to me? I said, no. I said, straight your price. I said, it's priceless. I'm not going to sell it to you. Let me tell you something. Spending time with him, you don't know how time flies. He's man of multifaceted personality. Shoot, ma'am. Otherwise, we'll keep talking about these things, and I can speak, and you will ask many questions. It'll never end.
Yeah, but you see, there are four great loves apart from his love for
that's right.
for the Tata Group and for his country. There are four things that emerge from your book. He loved Caroline. It was not to be. He loved flying. That became a big part of his life, including the bankruptcy of Air India to the Tata Group.
That's right. That's right.
He loved dogs, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And he loved pranks, and we will come to that also in just a moment. So let's start with the flying. I have friends in Air India who, and I have seen this personally. I have seen Ratan Tata carry his own briefcase into the Air India plane at JFK, flying just like a normal upper middle class Indian in business class, carrying his briefcase into that plane, and sometimes requesting the pilot, and I have known pilots who have shared this, could I have a look at the cockpit? That is Ratan Tata. That is Ratan Tata.
He had a passion for flying. At the age of 14, he started to learn flying in Bombay, then Bombay, now Mumbai. And of course, he could not get a license at the age of 14. And then he went to US. After he shifted to Cornell, the first year he started, training. And in about 6 to 7 hours, he was ready for his license, while it takes about 20, 24 hours of flying. And there is so many daredevil aerobatics associated with him. I'll just give you two and stop, otherwise it'll go endlessly. His love for flying, he had to do flying classes. And because flying was expensive, and they could only send him $180 a month. So what did he do? On one occasion, he had to sell his cufflinks.
Really?
Yes, I've said that in the book.
To pay for his flying classes?
Yes, that's right. And
amazing.
then he used to push planes. He used to take them to the hangar, wash them, to make that extra buck for that extra flying hours. Okay, that's what was most interesting. And two, he struck upon a very interesting business model. You know what he told his friends? I will fly you around the United States, no problem. You pay for hire and the gas, okay? And I'll be your pilot. So R&T says, Sir says, it'll fulfill my passion for flying at no expense to me. So he used to go cross country, and when he used to go cross country, if you have to file your flight patterns in advance, otherwise you have to keep below 5,000 feet. And he says he had to almost weave through birds, geese, in order to fly from city to city. So that's the model he had actually adopted. Probably a nice business model. The second instance, which I'll talk about, is quickly I'll tell you. He had a habit of taking his friends, go up into the sky, switch off the engine, and scare each one. That's a prank he used to play. And my God. And then people used to scream. Then he used to say that I used to play this prank, Thomas, and I used to come down and then restart. And what happened one day, he took 3 of his friends and they went for flying, okay, on a sunny day, bunking class. but he was extremely bright. He came back and walked into the night. So he went down the strip, and that day, it was a tri-pacer aircraft. And what happened? The engine flamed out, actually flamed out. And that got everybody else panicky, but Sir was absolutely cool. He tried his level best, and he tried to communicate to the control tower. And those days you're talking about, and the guy had stepped out to have a Coke, so he couldn't communicate with them. So he came and landed in the opposite direction, and he saw a Mohawk aircraft landing. He says it was the best landing that he ever did. And Nan Ottison, one of the 5 girls in his class, still says that whenever she sees an airport, memory goes back to the time she says she had a narrow escape. And she says he became a hero because he saved all our lives. And the next instance I'm going to tell you is, he was very, let me tell you something. You see a very calm demeanor in that man. But the man is extraordinarily courageous. I'll just give you one instance. The John F. Kennedy Airport is called the Idle Airport at that time. Okay. His father had come to New York. That's the John F. Kennedy Airport now. And he insisted that he will fly all the way. And Bewley, the flight instructor, one of the flight instructors, main pilots said, you cannot fly into New York. Idlewild Airport at the time was a very, very busy airport as it is now. And he says the air control traffic, people speak very fast. They said no. And then finally they relented, and he was asked to take Bewley with him. And they flew into New York, and they say he parked his plane in between 2 huge international aircraft in a very tight space, went into the airport, had lunch with his father, and came out, and they said, I do not think. And then he says, Ratan could have been one of the best pilots in the US, just as he's excelled in business. And then, his passion for flying F-16, you show him an aircraft, and adrenaline keeps pumping in him. There are so many stories to tell you, Barkha.
Was the purchase of Air India, the Ghar Wapsi of Air India to the Tata Group, a sentimental decision in the end?
I would not say it's a sentimental decision, but I'll tell you something. At the back of, after R&T, after Sir, handed over the reins to Chandra in 2017, he's not a man who will interfere. Okay. So Chandra told me that that he went and met Tata, and he said, if you think it's a good business decision, go ahead. But he never took a decision for Chandra, for Tata Sons, because he had stepped back. Okay. Now, if you do you find a mixture of emotion in the decision? If you really ask me, yes, that is because J.R.D. Tata, J.R.D. Tata had started Tata Motors, he started Tata Chemicals, but his love was for Air India. His heart actually beat for Air India. And when Air India was taken away from him, Ratan says that he almost cried. And it was something which is very important. And then, please understand, J.R.D. was his mentor. And like J.J. Irani, the iconic chairman of Tata Steel, then Tisco, he says, R&T was in many ways closer to J.R.D. than even his own father. So if you ask me, is it a complete emotional decision? The answer is no. It's a huge conglomerate. But Barkha, in life, everything is not a business decision. Yeah. There will be a mixing, melding of conflicting ideas, thoughts, and reasons why you do it. Okay, so that's what it is.
I'm going to come to some of the newsy business stories in a couple of minutes, but I have to talk about Goa and all the other animals that really was such a big part of Ratan Tata's life. And I think at some point in the book, you talk about how Goa became the boss of Ratan Tata's third floor office.
Yeah, Elphinstone building.
Yeah,
Yeah, see,
yeah, tell.
see his fascination for dogs. Let me take you through this. His fascination for dogs start with his love for a fox terrier when he was 12 years old, when his grandmother was alive. And then came, Tito, the majestic Tito he loved. And the majestic Tito came all the way from Jamshedpur. And that is a story which I've said. The trainer who came to Victoria Station. He had the dog in one hand, his bag on the side, and he was expecting a retinue of servants to come and meet him at the railway station. He found nobody. He just saw Ratan, and he was shocked. And Ratan says, "You hold the puppy, and I will hold the bag." And I've told him, and then you found him weaving through the crowd, and he went to the parking station, and he started looking for his purse. He didn't get his purse. Then he dug into his pocket. He didn't even have money to pay for the parking, and then he borrowed it from him. And he says so, and then took him home. That's his love for. And Tito, really, let me tell you, the first dog which you see, Tito, majestic, and the photo of Tito occupied, I don't know now, when he was alive, occupied a very important position on the first floor of his house. It was as if Tito in death was guarding Ratan as if he was alive. So he was guarding him in death as in life. That is his love for Tito. And believe me, his love for, honestly, his love for dogs surpasses his love for anything, except his grandmother. That's the way I believe. So that's as fast. And then, Goa is a dog which got into a car all the way from Goa when it came to Tata, when it came to, Bombay House. And then Goa used to be brought to the Elphinstone building after he stepped down as Chairman Tata Sons. And then, can you imagine R&T sir getting up to open the door for Goa and Goa walks in with an attitude that I'm the boss, the door has to be opened for me. And the whole world will stand up to open the door for sir. And you have a dog walking in with an attitude, and sir said, "Excuse me." He'll get up, open the door for him when he goes to the balcony. That's his love for dogs.
Amazing.
See, honestly speaking, a man who loves dogs, honestly, according to me, has got a pure heart, according to me. It doesn't mean that everybody who loves dogs is a pure heart, but it is a reason to believe a man. And why did he love dogs? He says they love you unconditionally.
Yeah.
Right? Their love is unconditional. And he used to spend his time in the evening with his dogs playing in the lawn. And he used to say, "Tell me, Thomas, that's the best time of my life." And whenever there was a crisis, he always took the dog out for a walk on the beach.
Yeah.
That's as regard dogs are concerned.
Now tell me, you also say, where you share some of his personal details, that he was a prankster, and you already shared the pranks he was playing midair when he was a young man flying planes. But a water pistol under a table at a meeting, I mean,
as Chairman Tata Sons, can you imagine? And he got caught by his own.
I thought he did it. I thought he did it much earlier in his life. He placed the water pistol when he was Chairman of Tata Sons.
Yes, of course. That's what Krishna Kumar told me. He says, late Mr. Krishna Kumar told me that he had this water pistol aimed at Baba, Jamshed Baba. He was quite old at that time. Exactly where he sat. Can you imagine? Now, Barkha, can you really imagine what would have happened in case he was not caught by the guard? What would have happened? Baba would have got up with wet pants. How do you like it? It would have been the most interesting.
But how did that story end? Like,
the story ended. No. See, before the board meeting started, the guard or the attendant found somebody bending down and looking under the table because he was trying to fix the water pistol. And then the guard came and Patna said, "Who are you?" And it turned out it was the chairman. And so therefore he got caught.
And then they couldn't say anything because he was the boss.
So, who can say anything? He used to play, and he used to, He loves his sisters, both and with sisters also used to play a lot of pranks. And, they used to stay with him in Baktawar. And there's also a story, when he had asked one of his sisters to hide in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and told the other sister that, she's not here, and then asked her to go into the bathroom to fetch something, and suddenly she saw her, and there was a huge scream. That's how she was. She used to play pranks.
I have laughed so much. I have tears. I have tears in my eyes thinking of the chairman of Tata Sons sitting under the table, putting a water pistols. I mean, it is the best story. It competes quite closely with the Caroline love story as the best story from the book.
I think it's very quite amazing.
It is very funny, but let's get to the serious stuff.
Okay, go ahead, shoot.
Cyrus Mistry. Now,
sure.
Yeah. Now, obviously, as your book spends 2 or 3 chapters talking about what happened, why he was brought in, why he was ousted, what it did to Ratan Tata, and you talk about how he came to acknowledge that it was a mistake that he rushed the Tata Group to find a successor to him, that the mistake began there, right? That he was in a hurry, he set a deadline. And then eventually he felt that it was about upholding values, but that contrary to whispers, he did really want Cyrus Mistry to succeed initially.
Yes, go ahead. So what's the question? But it's a very serious topic. I'm not going to make any value judgments. I'll tell you exactly what I understood from the situation. Which part would you like me to deal with? Please tell me.
Let's talk about what was the final straw over which Ratan Tata decided that he had to intervene. Because in your book, he says, I agonized and agonized. Should I intervene? Should I not intervene? I had made a mistake, but should I intervene or not intervene? And I want you to take us through that process of when he realized that this wasn't going to work and he needed to intervene.
See, Barkha, you will give me the liberty to disagree with you. There were no straws here. There was not one incident which was responsible for him to take the decision. Okay? Now I'll go through it very fast because otherwise it'll take a lot of time. As a matter of fact, Sir liked Mr. Cyrus Mistry. Okay? When Cyrus Mistry's father stepped down as a director in Tata Sons, Chapuji wanted, I'm not going to take names, Cyrus's other brother to be appointed. Which I've said in the book, okay? But R&T sir said, no, I will appoint only Cyrus Mistry, okay? So, contrary to what people believe, he was, completely supportive of Cyrus Mistry. If you see, R&T sir stepped down in 2012 when he attains the age of 75. And before that, 1 year before, they were having what is called this parallel running, that is together, holding hands and moving together for 1 year. It's called the training period. Okay, like you say, interns with you, so you understand that. So in November 2011, he publicly said in a Tata Sons statement, he said, "I think he will do great for the group and for the group's future." That's one. And R&T sir used to address the CEOs, okay? And the CEOs used to address, there is to be called annual group management meet. That's the big honchos of Tata Sons companies meeting the chairman of Tata Sons. That's where R&T actually talked about the policies of the group, its future vision, where the group should be taken, okay? And in the last meeting in 2012 of AGM, he exhorted the group. He pleaded with all the CEOs and said, please give him the love which you have given me. Please give him the support you have given. So, the situation was too ideal to be true. I'll tell you why. For the first time in the history of the Tata Group, you have a new chairman who was completely supported by another chairman who had many years to go. All right. So you are talking about fusion of wisdom, experience with new blood. If this would have worked, it would have been, according to me, the most interesting golden period of Tata Group. Now, what happened? Now, I'm going through it very fast, okay? If you need clarification, please tell me. Now, I'm not saying that Cyrus Mistry is a bad man. I really don't think he's a bad man, okay? The point is that, did he have the experience to run a huge conglomerate from salt to software to steel? If you really ask me, no. Even the present chairman said that. Perhaps 5 years of a CEO or an MD of a company would have equipped him to try to do better, okay? I'm not trying to say he did bad, but the point is that he did not have the experience to run such a huge organization. In the first year itself, R&T sir found that the performance of the company was not as good, and the trajectory it was taking is not encouraging. So what did he do? He appointed Nitin Noria, the 10th Dean of Harvard Business School. I interviewed for, I think, about 4 or 5 hours, an extremely brilliant man. So he was brought in. And you know what? I interviewed him at Harvard. He says, people won't believe it. I was brought into the board only to support Cyrus Mistry run this huge conglomerate and advise. He says he advised him, but he says he found a lot of shortcomings in his management style. For one, he says he never took decisions fast. 2, he never took collective decisions. He did not take a lot of people along with him. He wanted, there was a kind of centralization of power. Now, as a result of which, you could see the graph slowly dipping. Okay. Now, I did a granular analysis, all right, just to see if the contention of the Tata Group or what R&T sir said was right or wrong. Because during the last phase of their, the crisis, where after Cyrus Mistry was removed or replaced rather, he came out and said that these companies did much better under him than under Mr. Tata. Okay. So, and he had given the names of 6 companies, talked about TCS, Tata Chemicals, Tata Power, Tata Motors, and they said they did much better than the Sensex, they said, but generally. So I put this to the test. Now, if you look at the figures, first you will find that there is truth in what Cyrus Mistry said. But if you go a little deeper, you will find that's not the case. I'll just give you an example. Please note that from 2007, you have a beginning of the economic contraction in the world. You talk about the economic crisis, if you know.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there was this economic crisis which impacts manufacturing industries as others, you will see that the growth of Tata companies, even during this phase, 2009 to 2012, the growth was 17%, while the Sensex came down by -4. So therefore, the total growth was around 22%. Okay, just to give you, I'm sorry, I'm giving you numbers, otherwise I'll not be able to substantiate. While during the time of Cyrus Mistry, the growth was anywhere between 44, 45, 46%. But the Sensex went up by 44. So if you really look at the growth in terms of Sensex and the Tata companies, you will find during the time of Ratan Tata, the growth was 22% versus 7% during the time of Cyrus Mistry. Now, so there was a lot of truth in what they said. And plus, there were a lot of other issues. I'll just mention and stop, otherwise it'll take a lot of time. One is a Docomo issue, as you know. You know, the Docomo issue had come to a stage where it was affecting even Indo-Japanese relations. I mentioned that in the book. Because Tata's, according to the arrangement they had with Docomo, that in case they want to, move out, they'd have to be paid a certain amount of $1.17 billion. And, the administration under Cyrus Mistry took refuge under some RBI guidelines, said, and I'm not going into those details, saying that we cannot make the payment. But we know what R&T sir came and said. R&T sir said, Thomas, how can we do this if the largest conglomerate in the country, represented by the chairman, will sit across a table, and if the other parties cannot trust what the chairman is saying, what is India's future when you're looking for?
I think in the book you say that it was beginning to impact relations between India and
That's
Japan,
right.
and Ratan Tata
That's right.
decided that it was hurting the country's interests, and one of the first things
That's
he did
correct.
when he came
That's
back
right.
was to pay Docomo the amount
That's
that
right.
Mistry was refusing to pay.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I would not say that Mistry was refusing to pay. I mean, that Mistry
Dragging his feet on.
he was
Dragging his
dragging
feet on.
Now, you know, most important, what R&T sir was telling me was that he said, Thomas, what will happen if India's conglomerate chairman cannot be trusted in an international forum? Then what is there? Who's going to trust you? So therefore, one thing you need to understand, R&T sir always took decision first for the nation, the society, and then for the group. He could have also done exactly like what Cyrus Mistry did and not paid $1.17 billion. And it's no small change. But he said it is important for the nation. That is one major issue. They had a problem with. And second, Barkha, there is a very, very important issue in this. That's the issue of corporate governance. Okay, I'm not passing any value judgment. You have to understand one cardinal point which sir was making. At the time of selection of Cyrus Mistry, when the file was submitted to Mr. Tata, he said, there are two conditions that have to be fulfilled. One is that Cyrus Mistry will put in a structure which will keep him separated from Tata Sons and his group, so that there is a tenable architecture that will not mix both the roles. In other words, he will not have anything to do with the Shapoorji Pallonji group. In fact, during the time of the interview itself, the committee said, Cyrus, you have to build a Chinese wall to protect against accusation that Shapoorji Pallonji, the builders, they do a lot of buildings, are not taking advantage. And just giving you one figure, from 2009 to about 2012, around that time, Shapoorji Pallonji got about 3,000 crores contract from various Tata companies. Now, Barkha, the government, as much as I do. Can you imagine if a CMD of a PSU would give his father's company contract in that PSU? Yeah, CBI, ED, everybody would be after him and you'd be suspended and sent home. As a matter of fact, as a matter of principle, even when he was a director, if you really ask, that's my personal point of view, even when he was director, ethics and good governance would demand that you do not allow your company to compete for contracts of Tata companies. And even when R&T kept on reminding him, R&T sir kept on reminding him that you need to sign this, or you need to do something, make a solid architecture that will separate both your roles. But that did not happen. And therefore, he wrote a handwritten letter to him, which was actually underscoring the foundation of the group, okay, and telling him that the ethos and the cardinal principles of the group were laid down by Jamshedji and carried on since then, embraced with so much of fervor and not allowing it to be violated. And you have to sever your relation with the group. With Shapoorji.
And your book talks about how Cyrus Mistry says to Ratan Tata's
that I'm not going to do it.
That I'm not going to disassociate myself from my country.
I have also one more point. Now, let me put it like this to you. The so-called fastidious embracement of normative values is not anything new or only applied with regard to Cyrus Mistry. If you remember, if you read the book carefully, you will find as a part of the restructuring program, in 1998, he introduced what's called the Tata Code of Conduct.
Yeah.
That regulates the behavior of all the Tata employees to ensure that there is, please understand, normative systems in the group. People will adhere to ethical values. And therefore, it is something that he has been pushing right from the time he joined as a chairman of Tata Group. So therefore, when he found one, the
Basically,
most important is,
Cyrus Mistry was in violation of the Tata Code of Conduct. Let's put it simply.
and I don't want to say that, but yes, in essence.
That's what it
It's
is.
true. Yeah, it
That's
is.
what
I
it is.
completely agree. And it hurt him. And it hurt the poor man. Let me tell you something. People, I don't know what all people may talk about, this incident. But if there is anything that hurt R&T sir more, I don't know of. Let me tell you. The removal of Cyrus Mistry, the replacement of Cyrus Mistry hurt him the most. It agonized him. You know why? He says, Thomas, it was not the Tata way. And is the first chairman to be replaced. He said, and Nitin Noria says, it was the toughest decision R&T sir took in his life, because he knew that there is going to be a lot of speculation. There's going to be a lot of pushback, and is going to, place the entire group in a kind of a turmoil and a kind of situation where there'll be headwinds, there'll be criticism, washing dirty linen, and people in the press talking about stories, imaginations, everything for that matter. So therefore, that's the toughest decision in his life. And unlike a lot of people say, removing Cyrus hurt him the most. And okay, let me put it like this to you, Barkha, in 2 words. It was a regrettable inevitability. That's it for him.
Got it. Well, the book is very, very detailed account, a definitive account of this battle, and I urge everybody to read the book. In the end, I want to come to something a lot of people in today's generation will not remember, which is Tata Tea and Assam. I found that story, actually, ULFA, very, very interesting, because imagine that the Tata Group was actually called anti-national. By who? By Assam's top cop. How did this come to be?
DGP called Rishikesh.
Correct. And the accusation was, okay, so your book talks about how the ULFA first asked for money for walkie-talkies and so-called annual tax.
Right.
The Tata Group refused. They met with them, but they refused to accept their demands. But things come to a head when somebody, you'll tell the story, but somebody connected with ULFA takes on a fake identity and comes to a Tata hospital for treatment. And the Tatas are then accused of assisting ULFA members. So I want you to tell us this story.
Okay, ma'am, in very brief, let me tell you. Okay, tell me how many minutes do you have?
Couple of minutes, tell the story, because I have other questions
quickly.
also.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let me put it like this to you. In 1997, there was this lady called Bonti Berua, okay? That's not her actual name. Her actual name is Pranati Deka. She was the cultural secretary of ULFA and the wife of the finance in charge of ULFA, okay? She had a medical problem related to a pregnancy, so therefore she was treated in Cheslok Hospital. It is true that the Tata Group financed her treatment. But please understand one thing. Tatas were running several social welfare schemes in Assam. And Tatas had a program to take care of the medical treatment with regard to lot of ailments. And did Tatas know that she belonged to the ULFA group? The answer is no. Because there are hundreds of people who will come to your door. And if Tatas were to verify each person and check the background, by the time you check the background, the person would have died. And then somebody will say Tatas pushed a patient, at the brink. Can you imagine if Tatas would have said, no, we cannot treat you, we cannot help. You know what would happen? Suppose she would have died, she said, they would have said, they are so unkind that they did not even take care of the interests of a pregnant lady. Okay. Now, after this happened, what happened was there was a DGP called Rishikesh. He held a press conference in September and used this evidence to say that Tatas are anti-national and they are helping this group, which is completely wrong. I'll just tell you something. The Tatas had kept the government informed. The Tatas had kept the Home Ministry informed. In fact, Krishna Kumar had gone and met the IB official in charge and said, these are the demands. They have asked us to meet in Bangkok. What do we do? They said, okay, go ahead and meet, but don't tell anybody that you have conferred with us. So Tata officials met them in Bangkok under the instructions of the Intelligence Bureau. At that time, it was not known. Now, I was lucky enough to talk to the same person who was dealing with this ULFA matter. And on record, he told me that these were the instructions given by the Intelligence Bureau, which was not known to the state police. So calling Tatas anti-national was completely wrong. There could be nothing further away from truth than that. So that is because he did not know. Well, because what IB does, IB doesn't tell anybody. So that's what it is.
I'm just
second, there is this Director General of Police, that intelligence, called Mr. Ramchandran. Oh, sorry, I should not be taking names. Anyway, it's in the book. He told me, he said, Thomas, as far as Tata Group is concerned, they are above board. Okay, some peon or somebody way down may have some contact with ULFA, but at the top level, they are absolutely clean. In fact, this book, honestly speaking, exonerates Tata Group, and for the first time, normally IB officials don't exist for all practical purposes, They don't say that they exist. So he is on record having said that there is no involvement of the Tata Group in any of the ULFA matters. In fact, they were very patriotic.
I think the response to Mr. Tata's passing showed that he was India's most loved business leader. No question of anti-national, but it's a moment in history that you have recorded, which is why I brought it up. Now, there's a lot else we don't have time for, so I want to end, Dr. Matthew, with the personal note. How Ratan Tata told you that when he was in school in Mumbai, he didn't have a lot of friends. He saw himself as a child of separated parents. That impacted him grievously. But in his life as Ratan Tata, he had many unconventional soft corners to him. His love for dogs we've discussed, but he also, or his reunited sort of friendship with his first love, Caroline. All of this your book captures beautifully. The headlines have also spent some time talking about Mr. Tata's friendship with a young man, Shantanu. Shantanu used to call Ratan Tata his lighthouse, and he became one of the young managers eventually of the Tata Group. What can you tell us about Ratan Tata's unconventional approach to human connections?
Ma'am, see, what is most resplendent in Sir's relationship with people and empathy comes out in the best relief you can ever imagine during the 26/11 crisis. I don't know if you read that.
I did, yes.
And even you won't imagine, R&T himself said, Thomas, you cannot write when people call me God. Okay, I'll give you an instance, Barkha. I almost got beaten up by a person who was interviewing, a lady. Okay, her husband was shot dead by Kasab. Her husband used to be a peon in that Kama hospital. Kasab went into the house asking for water, got water from her husband, asked for water again, and split him into two. Okay, and her son, who was watching this, ran into the bathroom, became a mental wreck. So I interviewed her. Okay, when I interviewed her, she was going through psychiatric treatment after the traumatic instance. So I said, Madam, I told her, Ratan Tata Saab, kya kiya? He says, Ame pura zindagi diya, ame gar diya. Believe me, she was not an employee. Her husband was not an employee of any of the Tata Group or any of the Tata companies. Okay, but he reached out to everybody who got affected in Mumbai, because he says Mumbai has to rise in defense, in patriotic symbols, and oppose terrorism in all its form.
Yeah.
And I told her, ma'am, what all did you do? He says, he looked after the education of my children. I've got a house to live. And till my children would reach a certain age, I would get these amounts from the Tata group, that is the Taj group, which they started a special fund.
Yeah.
So I said, what is your impression about it? So he says, ये तो भगवान है. He says, भगवान है. मैं भगवान को देखा नहीं, ये भगवान है. So I told her, madam, वो तो सही है, but मैं किताब में कैसे लिखूं? You know what she did? She got up from there, pushed the glass which in front of her. He said, अब क्या बोलना चाह रहा है? क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं आप? Can you imagine? I was faced with a situation and she walked out. She ran. I ran after her. I apologized to her. I came back. That's this man. Okay, that's this man's empathy. If you ask, then there is a person called Sunu Varghese. I don't know if you read about her. Her husband. You know what? Tell me who would do this. He got the entire families of the people who died in Taj, took them to Hotel Presidency and met all of them one by one. And the Sunu Varghese, that is the wife of Varghese, who was killed by the terrorists. So at about 10 o'clock, she brought both her sons and met, meeting R&T alone is like, it's very daunting. It is not that, his simplicity is more daunting than an aggressive person, okay? Because you don't know what to make of him. He was there with Dixon, he was there with Krishna Kumar. And he says, and she said she had only heard about Ratan, okay? She heard about that. He's such a great personality. He loves his people. So she was being interviewed by this team. So Ratan sir asked her, what are your plans? She says, we have lost everything. My husband's mother, who's about 78 or 80, living with me. We are going back to Kerala. Okay. Then Ratan says, well, no, you lost your husband, but we lost a great employee of Taj. And said, you have nothing to worry. From today, you are in the Tata family. Okay. When she spoke to me these words, tears came down. I asked her, then what did you do? What did you tell her? She says, I couldn't believe. And then her son, it's very interesting, told the son, what is that you want to be? He said, I want to be a chef. And there is a place where it's very expensive for your training, for catering. And Krishna Kumar said, okay, go study. We will take care of all your expenses. And can you imagine, the boy passed out and then got admission in Australia. All right, look at the human story. And he was shot by about 10 lakhs. He wrote to R&T sir. He wrote him a check of 10 lakhs. Okay. And then at the end of the meeting, I can't tell you, I'm just trying to recall. It's such an emotional moment. You know what she turned around and said? At the end of the meeting, he told her, Sunu, it'll be a privilege if you join me for dinner. That's written. Now, what more, can I say about that man? That is him.
I think,
and I'll tell you, ma'am, you can't imagine. When I interviewed so many employees, everybody says it's God. Right? And he said, no, there was one interviewee. You know what she said? She says, Bhagavan upar ka pata nahi kahan hoga, mere ko pata nahi. But jo Bhagavan zameen mein hai, yahi hai Bhagavan. And when I told R&T sir that somebody said, he says, no, don't write any of these things. So I just kept quiet. But I can't, because you know what? I did not prompt him. I did not prompt her, or I did not prompt many of the people I interviewed. Barkha, from the desert town of Albuquerque to the remote town of Magadi in Kenya, where I interviewed the Maasai chief for understanding what the Tata Chemical Magadi plant was doing. I interviewed everybody I could get. And believe me, what everybody said, like, what does Henry Kissinger say? I've been to, I knew him from the beginning, but, to go to Henry Kissinger's house itself is a privilege, okay? He spent 2.5 hours with me, and he talked about R&T, sir. What did he say? He says he qualifies to be among the 2% of the best businessmen in the world. And when Henry Kissinger is telling you that, and then what is the point that he will accentuate for you or underscore for you, underline? He says, when Ratan takes a business decision, he said, Thomas, it's not a business decision. It's a socially relevant decision. Convert into a business project so that that social requirement is served through that business proposal. That's Ratan for you. I don't know how many hours of this conversation this has to go on, man.
No, I think we must stop because we could go on forever. Okay. For the rest, we must read your book. One last question:
sure. Did
he have any regrets?
Yes, the Cyrus Mistry episode that he was compelled. Okay, ma'am. One thing I need to talk over here. Just I'll finish it.
Yeah.
That he was compelled to remove Cyrus Mistry. It was his biggest regret, and then he says it where I have quoted Nitin Noria, who said, at some point of time, you have to take a decision because you have a fiduciary relationship with the millions of shareholders and the group to ensure that its performance would not dip further. That is what compelled him. That is the regret he had, that he was forced into taking that decision. It hurt him more than, in a manner of speaking, it must have hurt Cyrus Mistry. This is what I could understand hundreds of hours with him now.
And so, how did 2611 shape him? Did it change him in some ways?
It changed him a lot, ma'am. If you see 2611, the man was standing outside the hotel for 2 days continuously, and he wanted to get in. He was stopped by the security. He said, "You go away from here." Because, can you imagine terrorists getting hold of R&T, sir? I mean, it's important. I mean, it would have been a disaster for the nation, for everybody. And it changed him because he felt that Tata family consists of not only, the Tatas. He says every employee of this group would give to the group more than what the group gives it. And that was a lesson for him. He says, there was no procedure. There was no prescription. We did not ask them to do it. But what they did even surprised me, he says. It changed him as a person because he was melted by the love and affection and the devotion the Taj employees showed for the group and what Taj meant for them. I think it was a great lesson for him. But it made him very strong and patriotic. And he said, you can beat us, but we will not kneel. That's written for you, ma'am.
Well, Dr. Matthew, like I said, we could go on for hours, but we want people to read your book. We do want people to read your book. There's so many more stories in that. It's been a labor of love, the authorized biography, the definitive story of Ratan Tata, A Life by Dr. Thomas Matthew. It's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bless
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.